which could also be true in the years of ministry,
Yeah.
of leading people.
Yeah.
Sometimes you pour in, you disciple, you spend the
Yeah.
time, you spend the
Yeah.
money,
Uh-huh.
you have the Bible studies, you
Yes.
pray over
You
them,
go
you
to the
anoint them
showers and the
whole,
weddings.
all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And the harvest that you planted is not the harvest that you get.
Yeah.
Has that, well, it shouldn't hit you as hard as parenting your children, but how
It's
have you
up
dealt
there.
with
Yeah,
that?
it's up there. If parenting on a scale of 1 to 10 on some of the most difficult times was a 10, I would say pastoring is right up there, like 9.5. It's up there. It's close. It's close to the hardships that you face with that very thing.
Well, the
With
difference is with the kids, though,
Yeah,
they're not going anywhere.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
I read, I wish I would have saved it, but I was flipping through Twitter when it used to be Twitter. I can't even say
It's
X. It
X
sounds
now or
weird.
something. I know
I
it
know.
does sound weird.
But a pastor was saying, I
Hmm.
wish we talked more about the grief of
Right.
pastoring from
Exactly.
the people,
Or the church hurt. Everyone's always talking about church hurt.
of the people in the pews. But what about the
Well,
church
yeah.
hurt for the people who are leaving? Yeah.
Yeah,
But he
yeah.
said
But with you.
people come and leave and
Mhm.
come and leave. He said, I'm
Yeah.
constantly in a state of grief.
Yeah.
And
Well
most of
said.
the time when people are leaving, they're leaving
Yeah.
because their needs weren't met. They're upset about something
Sure.
someone did or said.
Right.
But I'm here
Mhm.
pouring. So how have you dealt with that? Because that is not, again, your daughter, your sons may have a good day or a bad
Sure,
day,
sure, sure.
but you're connected.
Right.
The people that you lead, that you pour into,
Yeah.
can leave and you'll never see them again. How do
Exactly.
you handle that?
That is probably, I think, one of the top hardest things about pastoring and leading a church or an organization is people that you pour your heart, your life into. There are people that are like, we're going to be in this together. We're doing this forever. We're growing old together. And then they just ghost you. That is probably one of the toughest parts of ministering and leading. And I'll tell you of a scenario when it was done right. And it could have been someone leaving, but they ended up staying because they did it right. We had a conversation. We had these 3 or 4 couples that were really influential in our church. And during the pandemic, everyone during the pandemic was losing their minds, not their best
Yeah.
self, not believing, not believing the best in anyone. And it was just a hot mess. And our world was hurting. It still is in so many ways. But during that time, some of key couples in our church who my husband and I are very close to, we've done life with, we love, we adore, we're very close to them. They all were offended. There was more than
Yeah.
these key couples,
Yeah.
but this is one that is an example of offense handled correctly. So they were hurt, and they were hurt about something that we did or didn't do. But instead of leaving, like lots of people do, and you never hear of them till you see them just randomly on Instagram talking about their new place that they're at. These 4 couples actually, they talked together, but it didn't just stay with them, which I think sometimes when someone is hurt or offended, they talk amongst their friends and then it grows, but it never gets it to the person who can actually apologize or do something about it.
Mhm.
So these 4 couples actually sent us a text message and said, we have some stuff that's on our heart. We need to talk with you.
Mhm.
And so the stuff that was on their heart was bothering them so much they were wondering if they should leave the church. So in this case, it was a special case because we were close to them. We had them over for dinner. And so we let them all share their pain points, their frustrations, how they were feeling. My husband and I said sorry. We apologized to each of them. We owned every single thing that they said. And then they allowed us to share our perspective on what it was like or what it is like leading a church that has every single political affiliation, every single type of person. Our church, like it's all the world's coming together. So we got to share from our viewpoint of what it's like leading during a time like that with all these worlds together. And them hearing our heart then actually helped heal their wounds. And then they realized that they were had a misperception
Yeah.
of how we were handling certain things. And so we had this beautiful dinner. We all cried. We all talked about how we were feeling. And by the end of the dinner, we actually grew closer together. And there's some of the key front facing people of our church. But had they not told us,
Yeah.
like most people do, they don't tell you, they just disappear instead of bringing it to you. And they didn't, because they brought it to us, we got to share our perspective. And then they realized, like, wow,
Yeah.
we could have been lifting your arms during this time. We were over here in our little corner complaining because you said, sometimes we'll take a little snippet of
Yeah,
what you say
right.
and,
Extrapolate.
yeah. But all that to say, that was when it was done right. It's been done incorrectly before, where I just hear through the grapevine, oh, so and so got offended because they said the church is growing and it's not the same. I'm like, have you talked to anyone who's gone through anything in our church?
Yeah.
Like, our church is still the same. We just had this couple, that same couple who is about to leave our church, who now is still super involved. Her husband had this tragedy happen. And the way the church is surrounded them, the meal trains, people are cleaning her house, people are over there cooking meals for her. Like we rally. And so are we perfect? Is the church perfect? No. But we will rally when you're going through something, and we will show up if we know your need. Some people have these needs that they don't express, and then they just expect you to know without, like,
But I
don't
think
know.
that comes back to dinner.
Yeah.
Like sometimes, if I'm an expresser, I'm a talker.
Mhm.
However, I know that everyone isn't.
Yeah.
But dinner implies it's Jesus sitting around the table
Yeah.
with the disciples. It implies we're doing life together.
Yes.
So there's some awareness that even if you're not one to bring up all of your stuff,
Exactly.
that I should have that something's not quite right with you.
Right.
An expectation, where expectancy with God, hope doesn't disappoint, Romans 5:5.
Mhm.
But expectancy with people is a whole nother thing.
Right,
Like you
right,
got to
right.
say something.
That is
But
the key.
I can't know you if we're not, if you're not talking, I can't know. But also, if we're not at the table together, if we're not living life together,
Exactly.
how am I supposed to be aware? So I love what you said about apologizing and saying
We
you're sorry,
totally
but at the same
apologize,
time,
yeah.
y'all were at the table.
We're at the table. And what I'm finding is people don't tell you how they're really doing. So you can have someone that you're leading, you can have a team that you're leading, or a company that you're leading. You check on your staff and you're like, how are you doing? Like, we went to lunch together.
Right.
Yeah, that. And then you find out 2 years later that they were upset about something, and
Why didn't you tell me?
that happens all the time. And so that is also like a relationship killer, is holding on to hurt without expressing it, to at least give that person a chance to own
Opportunity,
it.
yeah.
And they may not own it perfectly, but at least you did your part while you got it out, and then you can work on forgiveness and forgiving that person and asking God to cleanse and heal your heart. But when someone just keeps it in, it doesn't even give you the opportunity to say sorry.
Mm.
I find that happens all too often. Mhm.
So operating royalty, but